What's your take on breaking the mold, exploring alternative paths amidst popular trends? Story 1. Aesthetic baby toys. I can't help but notice the influx of trendy mom trends, some of which I refuse to buy into. One particular trend that bothers me is the obsession with natural-looking toys in bland colors that prioritize aesthetics over functionality. There's a woman I know through work who fancies herself an influencer. Her baby is about the same age as mine, and every post she shares on social media showcases the beige baby aesthetic. One morning, before heading to a mommy group, I stumbled upon her photo of her baby wearing a matching tracksuit and bib in front of a boho wall hanging. However, my surprise grew when, just 30 minutes later, she showed up at the group with her son dressed in a brightly colored onesie and carrying a plastic toy. It became apparent that her entire life revolves around capturing the perfect image for social media. As a fellow new mom, it saddens me to witness people prioritizing neutral pastel shade toys to match their home decor aesthetic, as babies actually respond better to toys with bright contrasting colors. Our children are not mere accessories or dolls, and it's essential to remember that. Story 2. Sports gambling and disillusionment. My younger brother has become heavily involved in sports betting, and while he may be enjoying success now, I can't help but worry about what will happen when his luck eventually runs out. Personally, I refuse to dabble in that world. I've encountered colleagues at work who treat sports and sports gambling as their life's focus, studying sports news like PhD students. However, even the best among them barely manage to break even. One can only imagine the losses incurred by everyone else. I went through a phase where I became excessively engrossed in video games, completely neglecting my love for hockey and the NBA for a decade or more. Only recently have I emerged from that phase and started religiously watching sports again. To my dismay, I've noticed the abundance of sports betting commercials, with former sports idols shamelessly endorsing gambling. It's disheartening to witness these once successful athletes not being content with their multi-million-dollar careers and instead transitioning into pushing gambling onto unsuspecting individuals, including janitors and tradesmen struggling financially. Speaking from my experience as a bookie, my advice to those who do bet is to treat it purely as entertainment, similar to going out for dinner or watching a movie. It's not inherently a bad thing, but like any vice, it's easy for people to become entangled and lose control. While I'm not without compassion, if I suspect someone has a gambling problem, I impose low credit limits. Unfortunately, this does little to deter them, as they often seek out other avenues to continue playing. Personally, I am against the advertising of gambling, as I consider it irresponsible. While some individuals can treat it as mere entertainment, many others cannot resist its addictive nature, causing financial ruin for themselves and their families. Casinos and the gambling industry thrive because the house always wins. It's a highly lucrative business, but for the majority of bettors, the outcome is far from profitable. Story 3. Celebrity worship and parasocial relationships. I can't stand it when people constantly discuss the personal lives of celebrities. My roommate seems to know every detail about movie actors, singers, and their daily activities, as if it's a 24/7 obsession. It becomes challenging to even watch a movie with him because he incessantly reminds me of each actor's personal life and their involvement in other shows or movies. It's particularly peculiar when grown adults idolize celebrities and invest an excessive amount of time and emotion defending them. I understand the adoration of a 10-year-old for sports stars like Steph Curry or Giannis, but shouldn't we outgrow that phase? These celebrities don't know we exist, they don't pay our bills, and some would dismissively brush us off if we tried to approach them for an autograph or a photo. I recall an incident in college where I saw a guy wearing a shirt covered in messages like "Free Kobe" and "Kobe is innocent." While I acknowledge that everyone has their opinions, this guy took it to another level by wearing a hat with the same messages. It struck me as extreme, considering none of us were present in that room during the alleged incident. Additionally, there are those individuals who send death threats to the spouses of sports team owners because Beyoncé appeared to give them an angry look. It baffles me how people can become so enraged over criticisms directed towards someone who isn't even aware of their existence. I recently learned about a term called parasocial relationships, which describes situations where one person invests time, energy, and interest in someone who remains unaware of their existence. This phenomenon applies not only to celebrities but also to YouTubers, influencers, gamers, and anyone in the public eye. While it may be harmless but annoying in some cases, it can also become dangerous and obsessive on the other end of the spectrum. Story 4. Excessive cosmetic procedures. I can't believe the number of people, both women and men, who walk around with artificially enlarged lips that look extremely exaggerated and unnatural. It's as if they were stung by a swarm of wasps or decided to balance sausages on their mouths. I remember seeing a woman who had such excessively enlarged lips that she seemed to spit everywhere when she spoke. This obsession with lip injections and cosmetic enhancements has reached new heights. Take my younger cousin, for example. As a poor college student, she used part of her and her sister's financial aid for a boob job and lip injections. It's safe to say she has a serious spending problem. Unfortunately, these procedures have completely destroyed her natural beauty. I always thought she was the most beautiful among all of us cousins, with her naturally thin lips that had so much charm. She had that natural California girl beauty, complete with freckles, and it was always something I admired. But now, when I walk into her room and see her with those overfilled lips, I can't help but feel disappointed. She even casually mentioned to me how she had to go to the injector multiple times because of mistakes made during the procedure. And she's only 23. Yet she already looks like a sad caricature of an Orange County wine mom. It's disheartening to see young women falling into the trap of believing that these procedures will enhance their beauty when, in reality, they often end up looking like carbon copies of others who have gone down the same path. I recall a tweet that perfectly captured the situation. A woman went to a doctor for filler or Botox and asked how many years younger she would look after the procedure. The response was eye-opening. She would only look like all the other 28-year-old girls who have had the same procedure. It's not a preventative measure. It's a cycle of constant maintenance that will likely cost these women years and years of unnecessary treatments. Perhaps I'm biased, but when I see someone with obvious cosmetic work, it becomes the defining characteristic I associate with them. I'm just being honest, even if it may not be fair of me. Story 5, Pranks done right. A good prank should always make the person being pranked laugh too. Unfortunately, many people don't seem to understand how to execute a prank properly. My 5-year-old daughter's favorite prank is to swap the water in her dad's glass with Sprite, give it a stir to eliminate the bubbles, and then wait for him to take a drink, expecting water and getting a sweet surprise instead. However, she sometimes gives it away by telling him to have a drink right away and insisting on it. But overall, it's harmless fun. There are pranks out there that I genuinely enjoy watching, like the one where a guy in an elevator randomly pulled down a map display and started presenting the weather. It was adorable. And the sudden appearance of a boardroom right before someone exits a porta-potty is just brilliant absurdist humor. These pranks don't cause any harm, and they bring a smile to everyone's face. On the other hand, there are pranks that cross the line, where they put trash cans on people's heads or do mean-spirited things that are just plain awful. It angers me to see the victims of such pranks being treated poorly. Pranks should be about spreading laughter and joy, not causing distress or harm. Story 6, The Elf on the Shelf Misunderstanding. I refused to come up with creative ideas for 25 straight days just to keep the illusion of Santa Claus alive for my kids. A few years ago, during Christmas Eve with my family, I noticed a little toy sitting on the counter. My 8-year-old niece was right next to me, so I picked it up and innocently asked her about it. To my surprise, she started screaming and crying as if something terrible had happened. It was like a switch had been flipped, transforming her from a happy child excited about the holidays to a sobbing mess. I stood there confused, not knowing what was going on. Suddenly, my brother-in-law rushed over, assuring everyone that it was okay. He explained that the toy, known as Elf on the Shelf, couldn't be touched by anyone in the house because it would lose its magical properties that bring Christmas joy. It turned out that my innocent act of picking up the toy had shattered my niece's belief in the magic of Christmas. I had never heard of Elf on the Shelf before, and I simply thought it was a holiday-themed toy she had received early and wanted to play with. My brother-in-law was just trying to ease the situation and let her know that Christmas hadn't been cancelled because of my unintentional blunder. In one sense, I felt like the biggest jerk ever, but on the other hand, I couldn't help but think that if you invite childless adults into your home with an elf on the shelf, it might be helpful to clue them in on the rules. I had no idea what was happening, even as it unfolded right in front of me. We have our own way of keeping the magic alive for our son. We hide the elf in a different spot every day throughout the month, and he thinks it moves while he sleeps. However, we don't engage in all the other aspects of the elf on the shelf tradition. My wife, though, is incredibly creative when it comes to setting up scenes. On Christmas morning, we had the elf on the shelf holding a little Hot Wheel car as a prize for our son. After that, we put it away, saying the elf had returned to the North Pole. We strive to make everything in our son's world as magical as possible, but we believe in being playful and creative rather than resorting to creepy surveillance tactics. Let's keep the holiday spirit joyful and lighthearted, focusing on the wonders of the season. Story 7. Experiencing a parasocial relationship. Experiencing a parasocial relationship from the inside is a wild ride. I've never been on the receiving end, but after reading numerous papers by a particular author, I found myself wanting to tweet to them about it. However, to no avail, there was no response. It was then that I realized, oh yeah, I don't actually know them. While my experience may not be as severe as others, it was strange to witness my own brain having incorrect expectations. What baffles me even more is seeing people casually chatting with their Snapchat AI. It's peculiar how they learn from these interactions, and then everyone acts surprised when the AI knows so much about them. It's like the ultimate parasocial relationship, except it responds and learns from what you say. The potential for exploitation in this setup is concerning, in my opinion. Story 8, Smartwatches, particularly Apple. Initially, I was skeptical about smartwatches, especially the idea of receiving emails, calls, and texts on my wrist. I used to think they were primarily for fitness purposes, which didn't interest me. However, my perception changed when I got an Apple Watch. Yes, I do receive notifications on my watch, and while it can be distracting, it's actually been helpful in keeping me focused. Before, I would constantly check my phone whenever it buzzed, even if I had turned off notifications to concentrate on a task. Opening my phone would often lead to browsing Reddit or Twitter, derailing my productivity. Now, with my Apple Watch, I glance at incoming messages, quickly assess their importance, and decide if I'll handle them later. It has significantly helped me stay in the moment and avoid unnecessary phone distractions. Admittedly, smartwatches can be pricey, and their position on the wrist makes them susceptible to damage. However, I've found a more affordable alternative, a fitness band with basic features, which serves my needs perfectly. It displays the time, date, and even helps me locate my misplaced phone by making it ring. I realized that I didn't need all the fancy features, like receiving texts on my wrist or sleep tracking, as they tended to distract me. So, while I may consider getting an older model Apple Watch as a birthday gift, this list was supposed to talk me out of popular things, not fuel my interest. Story 9, The Reality of Fast Fashion. It's essential to differentiate between purchasing cheap clothing and engaging in fast fashion. Just because a piece of clothing was manufactured for fast fashion doesn't mean you're participating in it if you use the clothing until it can't be used anymore. The essence of fast fashion lies in making clothing go out of style quickly, creating social pressure that convinces people to continuously buy new things to stay up to date. It's a cycle that encourages unnecessary consumption. While fast fashion contributes to the affordability of clothing, it would be ideal if items were made to last. However, if you're using these affordable garments until they are worn out, you are not actively engaging in fast fashion. You are simply buying inexpensive clothing. Fast fashion may be the reason behind its affordability, but your responsible usage aligns with sustainable practices. Interestingly, I hadn't heard this term before, but the concept is familiar. I find it amusing that I am currently going through my clothes, deciding which ones to give away, unintentionally aligning with the idea of avoiding fast fashion. Story 10, The Value of Voice Assistants for Accessibility. While many of us may consider Wi-Fi appliances and voice assistants like Google Echoes as a joke, they serve as invaluable tools for individuals with disabilities. Imagine being blind and having to navigate websites using a screen reader on a keyboard, struggling with limited accessibility. In such cases, it's far more beneficial to ask Alexa or Siri to look up information, bypassing the challenges posed by traditional means. Personally, I used to dismiss Alexa as a joke until I worked on creating Alexa skills for blind people during a university project. That's when I truly appreciated the utility of these devices for individuals with disabilities. Though I may not buy one for myself, I'm grateful that these devices exist, offering accommodations to those who rely on them. They are particularly helpful for older individuals who may struggle with technology. My nearly 90-year-old grandmother, who finds tablets and computers daunting, appreciates being able to ask Alexa for a weather update, set a timer, or even share a random question she wants to discuss. I'm genuinely glad that Alexa-type devices are prevalent, ensuring that people who depend on them as accessibility tools need not worry about the services being discontinued. Remember, these stories reflect the experiences and opinions of individuals and may not necessarily apply to everyone. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. If you have a similar story to share or any thoughts you'd like to add, we would love to hear from you. Please leave your comments below and join the conversation. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate your support by giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with future videos just like this one. Don't forget to stop by our channel for more content. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next time.